Welcome back guys, today a new episode on Deaf Blue Podcast. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook and you can listen the episodes even on Spotify and even Apple and Google Podcasts. Subscribe, like and share on this YouTube channel, Deaf Blue Podcast. If you have questions, I even have an email that you can find in the description. Before starting, I just want to thank you guys with your suggestions. I am so glad that you appreciate what I'm doing and I will continue to be better in the future. Today I want to talk about a band called Apocalypse, an Italian metal band from Turin, north of Italy. The band formed in 2015 at the age of 14 by Erimanton Seth. He explained in one interview why choosing this name for his musical career. Erymanthos is the name that belongs to certain different characters in Greek and Latin mythology, and it is also the name of a Greek mountain. It was written down as Erymanton in Ovid's Metamorphoses, I believe, a Latin literature work, which is where I picked it up from. It reflects both my love for mountains and a connection to ancient Greece and Rome, which is what I was going for at the time, since our first album was about war around the times of the Roman Empire. More than anything though, I just thought the name sounded cool. Then Seth, because of Quarton, that chosen to call himself together with this artistic name. Erymanton formed the band with some friends with power metal-oriented influences, but after many lineup changes the band split up because they didn't care about this project. He started to play piano at the age of 6, but he wasn't his thing at all. He never studied music and his father gave him some basic lessons how to play guitar, but he learned himself alone how to play it. In early 2018, Apocalypse started to be more influenced by Bathory, epic death Nordic metal songs, and started working from February to October 2018. Exactly on February, after 30 years, the Quarton started working on Blood, Fire, Death. If you listened to my previous episode about him, I have talked about this particular album. Go to listen to it. Coming back to the band on December 23rd, they released an album called Si vis pacem para bellum. That means if you want peace, prepare for war. That you can listen on the official Apocalypse YouTube page. This album was produced by Erymanton that recorded all instruments. The album cover is The Final Day of Sagunto by Francisco Domingo Marquez, and it's an awesome painting. Listening to this album I can perceive Blue Fire Death atmosphere. Long intros with acoustic guitar and angelic choirs gives you an atmosphere of classical music, and not only. In the Day of Sorrow, my mind can stop associating this with A Fine Day to Die. Vocal screams with clean vocals are the main formulas of this genre. Thrash metal guitars with solo parts gives the metal influence and structure. In Chant of Glory Eternal, the similarities with Song to Alapai is very instant. Guitar arpeggio perfect to create a melancholy of lost hope. Music is made of emotions, bad and good ones. As many of you know, Bathory was even fast, like the first album, and slow, like Hammerheart. This band instead doesn't care to be faster than any other band. Drums don't need to blast much and they prefer to create a melody that works and that you can play heavy music, even with the slower tracks. On this album, I like the bass lines on Soldiers of Rome and Gloria et Mortem. The guitar scales and solos are very good with a mix of clean and raw vocals that give you the perspective of war in ancient times. Analyzing the lyrics, this album talks about war and battles in general. Apocalypse followed an important advice of Master Quarton, talking about history. If you remember well his interview in Portugal around 1990, he advised to Portuguese to talk about conquistadores, and I think Apocalypse tried to do the same, talking about the Roman Empire in particular. Very important about Italian history. But if you want to know more about lyrics, this is what Erymanton revealed in one interview. Tomorrow talks about the soldiers in a camp the night before the battle. The day of sorrow is the day of battle. The sun rises, the cold breeze whispers in the camp, the armies line up and charge to the sound of war horns. shouting to triumph in glory or die in honor. The piece ends with the image of the two armies clashing. Thunder, blood and fire brutally describes the battle, the rattling thunder of weapons and armor, the blood of the victims and the fire that envelops the enemies. The first verse ends with thunder, the second with blood, and the third and last with fire. For Chant of Glory Eternal, I imagined a marching or camp song for soldiers at war. It contains the declamation of the values of glory in victory and honor in death, invocations to the gods and destiny, and to the comrades to bury the fallen with their sword, so that their memory remains alive after death. In Soldiers of Rome, there is a bit of a mix of the themes covered so far, but it's all sung in the first person by a soldier. Gloria et Mortem is again the description of a battle, inspired by the episode of the defeat of Chemme. The title track, Si vis pacem parabellum, is always in the first person. The voice describes some phases of the battle, then exclaims, if you want peace, prepare for war. And finally, the chorus invoke the gods, while the solo voice screams, this is my day to die. Finally, his last sunset speaks in the third person of a soldier who was mortally wounded in battle, the only survivor in the field, who has lost all hope and is plagued by regrets, cries in pain, watches his last sunset, and when the sun disappears he dies. This last track is the only one on the album that I have written before discovering Bathory, when Apocalypse were still a band. On 3rd June 2019, Apocalypse released a tribute to Quorthon called To All Pie in memory of Quorthon, and it contains covers from first album Blood, Fire, Death, Requiem, Hammerheart, The Twilight of the Gods, and Norland 2. What can I say about this? It's a real tribute. I am very honored to have listened to an incredible artist singing the same tone vocally and musically. Every song was almost equal to the original. I really advise you to listen to it, that you can find on Apocalypse YouTube channel. It's almost perfect. Next release is called Odes, published on November 21st of the same year, recorded at Darkwood Studios like the previous releases. The album cover is a picture of a mountain, Roccia Melone, by Yari Ghidone. This is what he said about the lyrics theme in an interview. This song nostalgically recalls my past with my grandfather. It reaches up to the moment of his death, and when my time has come, we will meet again by the river. Even if it's symbolic, because I don't believe in the afterlife, this is a song that I've been meaning to write for some time. Because my grandfather was ill, he had to recognize people for 2 years, he wasn't self-sufficient, it wasn't him anymore. This song is a moving and heartfelt dedication to him. I wrote the lyrics in less than an hour and the music in half an hour. It's a song that comes from the heart. Woods of Wistfulness, the song that precedes it, is set in the same place, namely the forest and the stream that runs through it. The atmosphere is completely different. While in By the River we are in a lush spring, here the sun is low and distant. The slowly falling snowflakes are the frozen tears of a dark sky. The fog in which they float a wonder sad, weeping shadows, and a funereal silence envelop everything. The cold breeze whispers through the bare trees, and in the crystalline water of the stream the once joyful memories of times gone by shine like evanescent ghosts cloaked in pain and misery. There is melancholy, bewilderment, and no hope, no God, nothing. And then he adds, while studying the poet Horace at school, I have come across these two odes, which in my opinion were suitable for the atmosphere of the album, and I decided to use them in my music. The one recited in the ephemeral life speaks precisely of the flight of time and the fragility of our life, of the fact that everyone, king or slave, is destined for death. Exegi Monumentum, on the other hand, is a self-celebration. The poet tells us that with his work he has erected a monument more durable than bronze, more imposing than the mass of the pyramids, and that not all of them will die, but that his glory will be maintained in those who will remain alive. About the arrangements on this album, in every song there is an intro with acoustic guitar and wind effect in Bathory style. While I was listening the songs, I have only one album in mind, Twilight of the Gods. There are many passages that remind to this album. There is an alternation between clean vocals and screams to perfectly create an atmosphere of pain. In certain intros, I keep in mind important songs like Man of Iron or The Ravens, and I see the similar acoustic works. This album contains the longest song of 16 minutes, called The Ephemeral Life. The intro on this one is a bit different from the rest of the songs because there are bells effects like in Raise the Dead. It contains a new instrument here, the organ, to give the atmosphere of a cathedral with the choir. The calm before the storm, because at the half of song the drums start with heavy guitars and with heavy screams to describe despair. The last song is very special as well because it contains an important classical music piece, the Funeral March by Chopin. Here I need to say that exists another band that took this piece, and I'm talking about Candlemass Bewitched track in particular. If you have watched the YouTube video of them, the intro is very clear. Coming back to the song is the first time I listen to Funeral March with heavy guitars and drums, and it's very good. The vocal tone reminds me immediately to another Bathory song, Day of Wrath, but developed differently musically. The drums that recreate a march rhythm is very unique. We arrive right now to another album by Apocalypse called Collapse, released on May 17, 2020. The cover contains German airplanes with skulls in the background, maybe a tribute to Requiem album. Analyzing the lyrics, I can see the theme of despair, lost hope with only darkness that rises. There's only one thing a person could do for the band: run away if you want to survive. Fighting the country oppressors where a war is just a game to die. Indoctrination and domination. Or you kill or prepare to die. Torture and blood. Airplanes throwing bombs to the population to cause genocide. A scenario of death and desolation. Holocaust, death, pain. Kill for the potent, with entire towns destroyed. Apocalypse on this album show the cruelty of Second World War with killings of Jews in concentration camps, the pleasure of German police to see Jews starving and dying, and not only, even a criticism towards Christianity and God, the omnipotent figure that nobody saw and doesn't find credibility according to them. A brainwashing to cause fear and follow masses. There is even another theme on this album, lust and perversion, naked body trembling of pain, bleeding to death with knife cutting the skin. About the arrangements of this one, the thrash metal with death metal transitions are the main thing here, screams with fast guitar and drums in every song. I could say the band is very able to play fast, especially with guitar, but even drums are not less important. Certain songs are a mix of Destroyer of Worlds and Requiem albums, in general very well done. The drums change in certain songs, but without detaching from the word theme, and even the guitars contain classical music vibes in some riffs. The screams to give you the pain feeling is very good. Drum style intro in Genocide is a march style and is perfect for a war and battles album style. Masochist is a very good song with guitar scales and show a certain attitude. Drums and guitars use Motorhead style on this track. In Behind the Cross there is the organ, only on this song, as an intro to give a classical music vibe. Then the explosion of thrash death metal can't stop anymore. On this release there are even effects like sirens and airplanes to perfectly represent war in every single detail. Next album is the first released by a label, Earth and Sky Productions, called Pedemontium, on 21st January 2021. The cover is a picture of a mountain called Monviso, one of the most important mountains of Italy. If you look better, there is even a symbol on the picture, and it's the famous sun wheel. I've talked about it in the Quarton episode part 2. Go to listen to it. Harry Manton, that composed alone all the albums, explained in one interview the lyrics and song explanations, and he said, Pedemontium is a brief description and celebration of Piedmont, the Italian region he lives in, which is even the Latin name of this album. Dark Mountain tells the dark legends of spirits and demons that surround Mount Musinè, situated near Turin. I Died by the Mountainside, title of a unreleased battery song, which was initially supposed to be included in Hammerheart, describes the death of a warrior in an unspecified battle near the dark and cold mountains during a winter night. Crystal Eyes is the story of a man on a journey, perhaps a warrior or an adventurer, who stops to rest in a clearing at sunset and sees a female figure among the moonbeams, perhaps a nymph or a woodland fairy, and he falls in love with her. The Trail of Ice was inspired by a novel I read a few years ago about ancient Rome, in which at a certain point a messenger must leave to deliver an important message, and crosses the snow-covered paths of the mountains on horseback during the night in the north of Italy. Mountain Soul is the story of someone who climbs a mountain to find himself, and once at the top, faced with spectacular landscapes, he finally feels free. The Lake of Witches is a legend of these lands, precisely linked to the so-called Lake of Witches near Alpe d'Evero, according to which a young woman betrayed by her beloved asks a witch to get him back for herself. And then the two set off a cave where the witch asks the young woman to look into a small pool of crystalline water and choose between the mortal love of her beloved or the eternal beauty of the gods. The girl chooses the gods and dances with the witches of the cave around the fire. The cave vanishes and in its place remains a lake of pure water. Finally, the King of Stone is about Mount Viso, the mountain per excellence of Piedmont. The King of Stone, in fact, describes his grandeur and tells some legends, including that of his ancient curse: whoever dared to climb his top, he will never return. About the arrangements, intros are very unique, especially in ambient style. Vocal choir in background in every song creates an epic metal result. Guitar compositions are in a folk metal style, medieval so to speak, which is something that even Quorthon tried to do in all his battery career. The organ, I already mentioned in previous Apocalypse releases, used in some intros is special with classical music inspiration. Vocals in certain songs are a mix of clean and raw vocals for the Hammerheart and Northern nostalgic fans. In Dark Mountain, there is a cover of Te Deum or European Anthem composed by Charpentier, French composer. This album is a fusion of three genres: epic, doom, Roman metal. Apocalypse showed here to have a musical maturity from the time he started the band. Drums and guitar are not the main all instruments like for Collapse, but gives space to other instruments like mandolin in one track in particular and the flute for ambient intros. Acoustic guitar arpeggios are way more developed and it's good. The effects like the wind and horses walking make you enter in a dimension of an ancient era. My favorite track from Pedemontium is the Lake of Witches. Drum technique finds its place with heavy guitar, maybe more difficult technically, creates a musical sequence which is very original. Bach finds his way on the organ piece on The King of Stone. Good innovation. For the next release, Apocalypse collaborated with Mike Moberg from Mimo Sound Studio, where Quorthon recorded the last 3 albums. I talk about this in the Quorthon episode part 3 that you can watch on my channel. This is what Erimanto revealed about this incredible experience with him. Working with Mike Moberg, the guy who runs the studio and label, has been amazing. We get along great, and having my music remastered in the same studio where Quorthon recorded, working closely with the same guy I work with, it's really a dream coming true. Well, not even that, because I never ever would have imagined that anything like this would ever happened. When I first sat down with my guitar at 16 years old writing the first songs for this project. This went beyond my wildest expectations. It's hard to even put it into words. But if anything, it tells me that I must have done something in the right way with this project. I am so glad for him to have had the chance to visit Stockholm and talk with Mick about this band. This is so awesome! This album that I will present you now is the start of their work together, and I'm talking about Retaliation, released on 9 June of this year under Mimo Sound Records. Recorded always at Darkwoods Studios and remastered at Mimo Sound. The cover art is designed by Rimanton himself. This is what he said in one interview about this. The new logo was first designed for a black metal album that was intended to come out in late 2021 or 2022. That album was entirely written and recorded, but it ended up in the archives and never was released. When we made this new record, Retaliation, we decided that it would make sense to have a logo that was more rough around the edges, because the album itself is very aggressive. And he adds, 90% of the death or thrash metal covers have a colorful and intricate artwork or classic black and white photographs with ruins of buildings, apocalyptic cities, gas masks, poles of skulls and bones, etc. Stuff seen and reviewed that I like is really bored at this point, and which moreover we have already done on Collapse. So I used a photograph of the ruins of Ypres after the bombings of the First World War, but I blurred it beyond belief and added a damaged film effect. At first glance, the cover seems simply white, only a careful observer will see the ruins of a church among the blurred spots. A church which, moreover, offers a nice link with Christophilia, while the idea of the ruins in general lends itself well to dystopian tones of the record. Talking about the lyrics, the band talks about many things in this last one: pedophilia, sodomy, pain, to give you some. But the most important theme is the desire to kill people that cause despair to one person or too many. There is a vortex of violence and hatred, but even technological slavery, brainwashing and imagination. Social media, one of the causes of this society that goes down. Reduce yourself to receive a couple of likes and comments and taking care only about this life of appearance, showing more and more even useless things and not helpful to anyone. Do you remember battery songs like Psychopath or Century? Well, the theme in one of those two songs was ear rape. Very controversial, especially nowadays with what is happening to the world. With this controversy in Retaliation, Erimanton wants to let to imagination give a power of release, anger, pain, and so on. Fantasy is even dark, forbidden, exaggerated, and that doesn't mean it's realistic. In Waste of Life track, he talks about perverts that escort line to youngsters, forbidden pictures and pornographic videos and other things. About the arrangements, what could I say? Death thrash metal from the beginning to the end, electric guitars and fast drums. I could say that it's more brutal than his previous release, Collapse, which is more similar to Requiem. This album is more a tribute to Octagon, in my opinion, a criticism to Christianity. 33 minutes of pure rage, this one. I can add that it's a vent of anger and desperation, and I noticed on his vocal screams in every single song, especially on Necropsychomaniac with captivating drum structure. Reminds me to Psychopath track, Orchestration, really a punch in the stomach, evil fast riffs and drums, death thrash vibe. My favorite is probably Mass Grave. The beginning is very black metal like Mayhem, extreme vocals and guitars switch from black to death metal, drums also, but even Necropsychomaniac is really good. If you want to listen more brutal stuff, you definitely need to listen to it. Apocalypse since this year has a full lineup. Double M on drums, Hyperion on bass and Cavuras on keyboards. I'm sorry for the pronounce. They had a show in Italy recently and let's hope to see them live very soon. Support the band, support the underground. Okay guys, we arrived at the end of even this episode. Don't forget to subscribe, like and share videos. Instagram and Facebook always open if you have more ideas, and feel free to listen even on Spotify, Google Podcast and Apple Podcast. See you soon guys!